Hey everybody, what's going on? Speak No Evil, the American remake, is coming out here shortly, and we thought it would be a really good idea to check out the original 2022 Speak No Evil, which is a foreign film, but they speak in English the whole time, so don't freak out. I've seen this movie about a year ago. I finally talked Grayson into checking it out.
Yep. Over the weekend, I gave it a go.
All right. It's not the best horror movie, but it's definitely worth talking about, and I think it's a really fun time, and there's a lot to unpack here with this. And we'll also be doing a follow-up video about why the Speak No Evil 2024 is so over-marketed and just beaten to death. We'll also be doing Grayson's trailer reaction to 2024. You can see that and all other content on Carnage Candy on patreon.com/hangtime. So make sure and go check that out and support content like this if you enjoy horror stuff. Speak No Evil is a film about a young family with a daughter who go out on vacation, and they meet a doctor, his wife, and their son. The doctor quickly invites, after they meet them, invites them to come hang out with them sometime in their vacation home and just get together. They make friends on vacation. They make friends on vacation, but then invite them to their private home so they can hang out and just vibe, chill, have a good time, and things are just weird. And we'll kind of go in order, but overall, Grayson, what do you think?
I thought it was awful.
Yeah.
I got to be real with you. I watched it, and something kept going through my head the whole time I was watching it. And it was, I cannot believe how stupid these people are the entire movie. And as the movie goes on, because throughout the film, there's so many scenes to where you're like, good, you're out. Thank God. And then just like that, they bring them right back. And it just keeps happening, and it keeps happening, and it keeps happening, and it makes you want to rip your hair out because it's so frustrating.
More importantly, that's the exact point of the movie. So in that term, it does a pretty good job, doesn't it? It is literally the point of the movie.
It's so
oh, man, I hate that you hate it, but I love that I love it. Literally the point of Speak No Evil.
I understand that the whole point of the movie is supposed to be that the Danish family is just very like kind and polite, and they don't want to seem like they're a burden, and they don't want to seem like they're, but to a certain extent, it's like, I get it. So like, I understand that you're trying to be kind. I understand that you're trying to do all this stuff, but for the love of God, there's no way. Like, it just goes so far over the top that it's like, come on, man. Come on. Like, there's got to be a point to where in your head, you've got to be like, I'm getting out. And my key example is this, is your main character of the movie, his name is Bjorn. He's the main guy. And this guy might be my number one most hated character in all horror movie history. He is the worst character I've ever seen in a horror movie, because no matter what happens, he's either not sticking up for his wife, or he's just not having the courage to do something in the whole film. And it gets so annoying, and it's just it's a knife that's being pushed into you slowly the whole time.
All right, so this family, Bjorn, wife and kid in tow, they go to meet this stranger who they met for a couple of days on vacation. They go far into the countryside to stay at, what is his name?
His name is Patrick. So you have Patrick and Karen, who they meet. Patrick tells Bjorn and his wife that he's a doctor, so they think he's legit. There's another scene right after they meet to where the daughter loses her bunny, and then Bjorn goes and finds the bunny, and when coming back, Patrick happens to be there, and Patrick gives him a, hey man, that was really cool. You did a great job. Which then makes Bjorn like super like kind of attached to Patrick in a way that kind of is just like, I kind of got man, does Bjorn have a crush on
He's kind of gay.
Yeah, like there was that moment.
Admirable attention.
Yeah, like he was very like affectionate towards him like the whole movie. Yeah. Like it was super interesting how they did that. So you have that, and then at the end of the trip, they part ways, and they're like, maybe sometime down the future, you could come see us and, check out our cabin and stuff. There's a lot of great areas that we could go walk at. They also, the Dutch family have a kid named Abel, I do believe is his name. And this poor kid.
I know.
This poor kid. The second. Okay, I'll get to it here in a minute.
Yeah.
So the Danish family go back, which is Bjorn, and his wife's name is Louise, I do believe. Let me double check. Yes, it's Louise. So it's Bjorn, Louise, and Agnes are the family that go back.
Yeah.
Whenever they go back, they end up getting a postcard from the Dutch family, and it's basically Patrick and Karen saying, hey, we'd love to have you come down. Here's our address. Come spend a weekend with us.
Yep.
Without hesitating, they're like, he's a doctor. This will be fine.
He's a doctor.
This will be fine. We're going to be good. And
They
they
were
even
so nice.
they tell their friends, and their friends are like, what's the worst that could happen? I don't know. Like, you're going to this place you've never been. What do you mean? What's the worst that can happen?
So what happens is an eventual series of events of not like violence, at least not starting out, but this horrible sense of just discomfort, right? Bjorn and his wife are immediately met with just kind of these awkward social beats of things that are not okay socially. It all starts off with this kind of dinner scene where Patrick has cooked rabbit, I believe.
It's boar, I think.
Boar, yes.
I do believe it's boar.
Some kind of exotic game animal, and feeds it to Bjorn's wife, who is very like, I'm vegan. I don't eat meat.
She's vegetarian, is what she says, because she eats fish, and that's an argument that breaks out.
Gotcha, yeah. But eventually, after getting pushed a little bit by the doctor, she eats it. She breaks down like a moral high ground so she doesn't make the doctor, Patrick, and his family feel uncomfortable. And so starts this feeling of, okay, they're kind of a little too nice, right? It's very, and I thought that was a very clever, like, kind of like a barrier break to quickly show that, like, it's like that's a very extreme thing for a vegetarian to break.
Yeah.
And she's breaking it because it's the beginning of the trip.
And they're at somebody else's house.
Yes.
So she doesn't want to be rude. She wants to be open to something while she's at somebody's house. So, yeah, it is a nice little icebreaker right off the bat.
They haven't put they haven't set any boundaries with this couple, right? Yeah. Any social boundaries. So eventually they kind of go on walks together. Grayson, you're fresher than I am. So
yeah, they end up going on this walk, and you're introduced to Abel again. And the whole time whenever they first get there, the family is like, Abel is super excited to see Agnes. So then they show Agnes where she's going to be sleeping at, which is literally a pallet on the floor in Abel's room. It's really funny. So,
and just that situation for the doctor's family to put their kid in an uncomfortable spot. Yeah. You would think it's like, oh no, she can have the couch or this comfortable, but no.
Or stay in the room with us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or let her sleep with her parents.
Yes.
Right.
Which was the first second that I saw that pallet on the floor, and they're like, this is where she's going to be sleeping. In my head, I was like, I know where this is going. Like, it just clicked immediately. So you have that happen, and then they do all the interactions and stuff. And the first walk they go on, there is this really, really awful music that is playing. Not like it sounds bad, but it is very like brooding. And it's like, oh man, we're building this up. While they're walking to see, I think it's a windmill,
it's like
playground set.
Some kind of old, like some kind of old architecture, right? Because they're in like but yeah, it's just a simple walk. It should be very pleasant, but the music is just like, you would think somebody's getting cut to pieces.
Yeah, it sounds like, what it sounds like is it sounds like Leatherface is about to start chopping somebody up, is what it kind of made me feel. That's the tone that the music gives me while I'm watching
but it's just this nice leisurely walk. And I don't know, once again, it's just like, it's just trying to make you feel like this is uncomfortable.
And it does a good job at it, especially for the scene that comes up, because you have Agnes, who is on top of the slide, and is trying to go down, but she can't because Abel is blocking. So Agnes calls for her mom, Louise, to come over and try to do something. Louise tries to get Abel to move. Abel won't move, so Louise goes back to Patrick. It says, Patrick, Abel won't move so that Agnes can go down. And it is like something just snaps in Patrick's head. He stops, he looks, he turns, and he goes right up to Abel and grabs him by the arm and is basically yelling at him to move.
Yeah.
And then he finally does. When that happens, it cuts back over to Bjorn and Louise, and they're just kind of like, Louise is more agitated about it than Bjorn is. Bjorn just goes right back to eating whatever Patrick gave him. Like he was like, oh man, that's weird. This is really good. To the point where Patrick's like, I know, right? And it's so awkward and it's so weird. And there's like being parents, like there's no way that somebody would see that happen and be like, this is still cool though.
Yeah, I think it's just like, I don't know, like I've been in a social situation where I've been like, man, he's like really intense with his kid. And this was a little bit exaggerated. He like grabs him and like pulls him hard and shit.
Yeah, like he's very like, whenever he does it, he's very forceful in doing it. It's not like he's like slinging him around, but he's still like, when you see it happen, it's like, oh, that is kind of like jarring, and I don't like that at all.
Yeah, it's if you've ever seen like, if you've ever been like at a family function and like I don't know, like spank their kid, or like in Walmart, if you see a stranger just like jerk their kid out of the toy aisle and stuff, it's like, I don't like that at all. So, you know, kids, they're making their kids sleep on the floor. They're obvious. It's suggested that they treat their child, Patrick and Karen treat their kid a little strangely, right, and a little too intensely. You next get this kind of strange pub scene where
there's something right before the pub scene.
What happens before that? I'm sorry.
This was the other part that was like, no way. So they get told, Louise is already like, we need to get out of here.
Yes.
Like she's already like, we need to go. I don't like how things are going. Like we probably need to wrap things up.
Yes, and I will say, as the audience member, you're going in knowing it's a horror movie. Like from the beginning, you're like, they should not go hang out with this.
Yeah,
family
of
in the
course,
countryside,
like
right. And Luis is finally the like, we should go. And as the audience, you're like, yeah, you should get the fuck out of there. It's weird.
Louise is definitely the one at first. You're like, oh man, you're definitely the one that I'm rooting for here. You're the smart character out of the two. And
just keep in mind, there is nothing keeping them there at the house.
Nope.
The doors aren't locked. Patrick and Karen are very friendly to them. They don't make them stay. They haven't been aggressive to them in any way. This is just social uncomfortability, suggesting Luis and Bjorn get the hell out of there.
So they have that, and you know, Bjorn's like, "Hey, let's just stay and see if things will get better." Mid-conversation, Karen walks in and says, "Hey, Patrick and I want to take you to our favorite spot to eat at. We're gonna have a night out tonight. We'd like y'all to come." So they're both like, "Cool, we'll do it. Why not?" As they're getting ready to go, their daughter, Agnes, is with them. And then Karen comes up and is like, "Hey, are you ready to go?" And they're like, "Yeah, let's go." They open the door, and I can't remember what the babysitter's name is, but a random dude walks in to be the babysitter. And Luis is like, "Babysitter? What's this about?" And Karen goes, "Yeah, it's a parents' night out. Like, we're going out. You're going to keep your kid here with this babysitter." They've never met this guy. He just walks in. He goes immediately over to their daughter. And in my head, I'm like, no way. There's no possible way anybody would leave their child with a random dude.
I know. He's just some guy.
And they do it. They just go. And they're like, okay, yeah, I mean, it must be legit. Let's just go. Let's just go out to this bar. Because that's where they go. They go to this random bar in the middle of nowhere and eat these random foods.
So you do get this kind of, finally, this pub scene that it's the parents alone, kind of mano a mano, and again, social uncomfortability. Again, as the viewer, you know, it's like, yeah, these parents fucking, they're idiots. Like, what are they doing, right?
Yeah.
And these kind of walls start to tear down a little bit as, Patrick and Karen's start to kind of like.
They're poking.
Poking them, right?
This is where the argument breaks out with Luis and Patrick. And it's not like an intense one. It's just Patrick basically calling out Louise because Louise says she's a vegetarian, but yet she eats fish, which then Patrick is like, that's just as bad for the environment as anything else. So he's starting to like, he's mainly focusing on Louise. Like Bjorn, he's already got it basically in his pocket.
Yeah.
Like he knows what to do to Bjorn.
And it is like, okay, Patrick's seeing what he can get away with.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
100% he is. So they all get drunk. Well, Patrick and Karen get drunk. And then Patrick and Karen go start doing this like really emotional dance with each other, which then causes Bjorn and Louise start to dance together. And then they're kind of like doing this kind of stuff with each other. And you cut over to Patrick and Karen and they are like, they're basically getting it on.
Yeah.
And after that is over with, I laughed so hard at this next scene. So it cuts over to Bjorn and Patrick, and they're paying out their tab. And Patrick goes, "Hey, would you mind helping with this? You know, it's a little higher." And Bjorn goes, "Yeah, sure, I could chip in." And then Patrick goes, "Oh, you're going to pay for the full thing? Thanks." And it cuts back over to Bjorn, and he's like, "Yeah, sure, man." And then he does it. He pays for the whole trip. And after that's over with, they get in the car. And, you know, I'm not used to them showing like how drunk a character really is in a movie. But in this movie, he's blaring music as loud as he can. He doesn't care about anybody in the back seat.
Yeah, the car ride home, dude, is just...
Yes. And they are swerving everywhere. And it pans out to where you can see like the top view of the car. And it's just doing this the whole time. They're just serpentining down this road. And they finally get home. And man, it just gets so weird from here on out. Like this is where it really starts to turn.
Yeah, so if you don't know about the movie, you're like, this is an hour in, and you're like, cool,
Yeah.
Are they going to be, it's a horror movie, they shouldn't be in this isolated cabin. It's like, cool, are they going to be cannibals or something? Like, they're going to cut them into little pieces. And no, it just stacks more strange social situations.
Yeah.
I keep waiting. I'm like, okay, cool. This is the turn. Cool. We're gonna find out what's in their basement. And no, I think next we get this kind of strange kid dance.
No,
situation.
so that's actually what happens next is they go back to the house. Louise goes to take a shower because she's like, I smell like smoke. I need a shower.
Yeah.
While she's showering, it's implied, I do believe, that Patrick walks in and starts brushing his teeth. After that happens, Louise comes back in and lays in bed with Bjorn, and they start to have sex. And while doing that, Bjorn looks over and sees Patrick looking in through the window and is like, whatever. And to top it all off, Agnes is crying for them, and they just ignore her. So after it's over with, Louise gets up to go check on Agnes, and she's not in the room.
Yeah.
So she's like, where did she go?
Before we go too far, again, there's that kind of strange sexual tension, like Bjorn might kind of have a thing for Patrick, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like this cuckold
kind
of kink that he has.
It's weird. And it does like go on more as the movie goes on. Like they don't stop there. It just keeps.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on them? Like not like their daughter could be. I was like, okay, cool. Their daughter is getting like their daughter could be being like sexually abused by this family that they don't know.
Yeah, and
they ignore it while they're having sex.
That's what I was getting to is whenever you do find out where Agnes is in the bed with Patrick and Karen, and Patrick is naked. Like completely naked. It's a grown man naked in bed with a child.
This is like
and it's weird.
It's a nightmare hearing you talk about it.
Yeah, it is. And because you have Patrick, then you have Karen, and then Agnes is right here. So Louise goes in there and sees it, and of course she is like, no. She goes back in to Bjorn with Agnes and is like, we're leaving now.
Yes.
Like, pack your stuff. We're getting out.
Get out of there, girl.
And me watching the movie, I'm like, man, we're an hour and like 10 minutes into this bad boy.
And when they try to leave, this is the part where Patrick is going to lock them up.
Well, I thought he's going to lock them up, or we're going to get into a crazy car chase, and they're going to wreck on the side of the road and be trapped, and it's going to be this like almost Cujo ending situation where they're stuck in the car.
Yeah, since they're going to leave, something's going to hold them back at the house.
Nope. They get in the car, they start to drive off, And then whenever they're halfway down the road, Agnes starts to panic because she left her bunny. The bunny comes back into play, and you're like, no, just keep going and just like send a letter.
You are begging them.
I'm watching the movie. So as I'm watching this, I'm watching it with Tiff, and she goes, just have them ship it back to you. It's okay. Keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm thinking the same thing, but Bjorn, who is legitimately like always going to help his daughter, is like, nope. Turns back around, goes back to the house, and then
what is happening? I'm so glad you watched it with Tiff. What's dynamically like? What conversation are y'all having as a couple when they decide to take the car back? Are y'all both like, these parents fucking suck?
Tiff said out loud, she goes, stupid. She said it out loud. Like nothing else happened. I'm just watching it, and out of nowhere, it's quiet. You see the car turn around, and then you just hear, stupid.
Awesome. So at this point, it's like, okay, now they're gonna get locked up when they go back.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I'm legitimately with you. I'm like, okay, here we go. Now we're gonna start cooking into why this movie's so crazy. Let's see what they do. So they get back. Bjorn goes in. Luis is in the car with Agnes. Agnes looks down. Guess what's on the floorboard? The bunny. So Luis is like, oh, damn it. So she goes into the house to basically back up Bjorn, and Bjorn is like very politely trying to like get out of it and kind of like, honestly, kind of being shitty. Yeah. Like he's kind of like, the room was too small and the bathroom wasn't big enough, and
just anything to not be
exactly
not actually be confrontational. And he says everything except for, you make us uncomfortable. Yes. We need to leave.
So Luis overhears it, and then Luis steps in, and that's whenever Luis is like, I don't like where everything is going. I don't appreciate the fact that I'm vegetarian and y'all have been making me eat meat this whole time. And I also didn't like the fact that my daughter was in y'all's room last night. It's very weird to me. And then
stick up for yourself, girl.
Patrick, or it's either Patrick or Karen, one of the others goes, well, she was crying the whole time for you and you never checked on them.
Ooh.
And I was just sitting there, I was like, you got God. Like, what are you going to do? So then after all this is happening, Patrick, which the actor that plays Patrick is the best actor in the movie by far.
Oh, like, yeah, he has to.
He is dominating every scene he's in. So he's just like, this is unbelievable to me. I can't believe what's happening. If you stay here today, which you don't have to, you can leave at any time. You don't have to stay here. He tells them, y'all can go.
Doors
you don't have to stay.
Open.
Doors open. You can leave. We're not going to make you. But if you stay, something unbelievable is going to happen. And then guess what? They freaking stay again.
Yeah.
And after they got out and after all the uncomfortableness, they stay.
I've been in a situation to where I've had an issue with somebody, and then I go to confront them. And then I confront them, and then they immediately apologize and explain why they behaved a certain way, and then I feel bad for having malice, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know, like, let's say you upload a video wrong, and I'm just so pissed that you did it, right? And all day I think about, God, Grayson can't fucking do anything right. Mm-hmm. And then I get there the next morning, and then you're like, hey, I'm sorry I had a doctor's appointment. I didn't have time to get that upload done, and my phone died, so I couldn't text you. I'm immediately going to be like, oh, it's okay, man.
Yeah,
and
that's
then I
on me.
would go the extra mile
to make
apologize.
It easier. Yeah.
This is obviously so extreme and really, really idiotic on behalf of Bjorn and Luis, right? But it's that sentiment like escalated by people who will do anything to avoid this confrontation.
It's just like, man, at this point, because at first I'm like, I kind of like Luis. Like, Luis is definitely the stronger one of the two.
Yes.
And when she agrees and they stay, I'm like, y'all are both idiots.
Yes.
At this point, this point right here in the movie is where the movie went from being okay to it just drops off a cliff for me. And go ahead.
But I think for me, that's why I love it so much, because that's the turn. The turn is not vampires are going to show up or that Patrick and Karen are soul eaters. Mm-hmm. It's that Bjorn and Luis are so pathetic
That's
idiotic.
going easy on them.
Yeah, I know. Pathetic is like the ultimate word. They are so pathetic and cowardly and hungry to please people, whether it could be kind of some kind of sexual homoerotic thing or not, that they will put their lives and their kids' lives in jeopardy to avoid confrontation. And I was like, and so for me, at this point, I'm thinking, okay, they're cowards, they're pathetic, that's the turn, they're just stupid, and they're going to stay there no matter what. And you have to know at this point that the film wants you to hate Bjorn and Luis.
Yeah.
Like, the film wants you to know that they are stupid, right? And you would think at this point they would, it's like, what is their character development going to be? And at this point, I'm like, sweet. At the end of the movie, there's going to be some Last House on the Left shit. They're going to get pushed too far. And at this turn, so to speak, without knowing what happens, I'm thinking, and you can tell me what yours is, I'm thinking that Bjorn and Luis leave this house after Patrick and Karen have been butchered alive.
I did not think that at all.
What did you think?
At this point in time, I went, okay, they're going to die. Like, I had it in my head for sure. I was like, I know for a fact these two are dying.
Yeah.
Now, with the kid, I was like, they're going to do something with the kid. Like, but I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen. But I knew for a fact that Bjorn and Luis were out of there. They were done. Because it's just how cowardly they were. Like, there was no way they were going to bring that back.
Yeah.
And it enforces my idea with the more that you go in it.
But did you think that maybe, just in hindsight, well, I'll ask this when the discussion's over.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
So now we get pushed to like the ultimate, right? We kind of see an escalation of everything. This is the living room scene, correct?
Before that happens,
I forget everything.
I know. Well, I just watched it on Saturday or Friday. So after that happens, Bjorn and Patrick go and get groceries. And this is where Bjorn has this conversation, and I know I'm going to butcher it. I should have written the whole conversation down. But basically he's saying like something's inside of him and he can't let it out, and he wants to let it out, but he can't. And he has like this like really emotional conversation with Patrick, and then Patrick's just staring at him the whole time.
Yeah, and I think that was my thinking, right, is that like there's a challenge coming.
Yeah.
Someday in this movie.
And so he's having this conversation with him, and it's very like there's an awkwardness to the conversation like the whole time.
It's like a confiding brotherhood
yeah,
shit,
but he just met this guy.
Yeah.
So
it's something that like best friends vibe wise.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Patrick's kind of weirded out at the same time.
But Bjorn is almost like looking at him passionately as well. Like,
I know.
There is that tone to where it's like, man, what is going on with it? And I really do wish they would have kind of explored that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I understand why they probably didn't. So after that happens, Patrick's like, hey, I want to show you something. And then they go out into this like really weird, like, I don't even know what it was. I don't know if it was like a salt mine or what it is.
Yeah.
But they go out there and there's this long, I love this scene. I will tell you this. There's this very far out shot and you see Patrick and you see Bjorn and you see Patrick hunch over and you hear, oh, because it's so far back. And then he looks over at Bjorn and he goes, you see it in the distance. And Bjorn is kind of like shaking his head. And then he starts yelling. And then they yell together. And after this is over, it cuts to them, shirts off, pants off, only in their boxers, running, giggling, drinking beer, and then jumping into like a little indoor pool. It is. I don't know exactly what it was. It looks like a little bitty like inflatable like pool.
Yeah.
Like an above ground pool. And they're like laughing, and Patrick's like throwing his beer in the thing.
It's kind of like the awkwardness is gone, and
with those two.
Yeah, with those two at least, and Patrick is now close. Maybe kind of like giving Bjorn, Patrick maybe knows there's maybe some sexual attraction.
Yeah,
and Patrick's like trying to get in with them, you know?
I will definitely say that Patrick knows what's going on. He's like, this is too easy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I kind of keyed in on with Patrick is like the whole situation, there's not a point in time to where he's like, he's not getting away.
Yeah.
Like, he knows for a fact. And then, after that's over with, you have a scene in the kitchen to where Luis and Karen are working on the food.
They kind of have their moment, yeah.
Luis cuts her hand. And this part is where you find out about Patrick and his job. Bjorn tells Patrick to check on Luis's hand. And whenever that happens, Bjorn goes, Patrick, can you look at this? You're a doctor. And he goes, I'm not a doctor. And Bjorn goes, well, that's what you told me when we met. And he goes, I lied.
And it's just so, and it's exactly like you were saying, like, Patrick knows what he's doing. I lied. Yeah. I lied to you. I'm not a doctor.
He says, I lied. And then they fix it. And he goes, you see, you don't have to be a doctor. And then he goes, I've never worked a day in my life. And then they cut to eating at the table. And this is where Karen is constantly telling Agnes, like, slow down on your eating.
Yeah, there's this I love this scene a lot. This is a really good scene. But Karen is telling Agnes, like, table manners, like, how to eat and stuff. And Luis is like, hey, can you just shut the fuck up? Like,
yeah, Luis straight up just yells at Karen. It's like, stop telling my daughter what to do.
Yep. Just kind of finally had it because she doesn't have the relationship that Bjorn and Patrick have with Luis, right? Yeah. She's still got her wall up, rightfully so. But oh my God, this next scene is my favorite scene in the movie.
Is it the dance?
Yeah, the dance scene is my favorite scene in the movie.
Yeah.
So Agnes and
Abel
they're like doing this dance together, and poor Abel is just not hitting his beats, and Patrick like is such a bastard to his son and just yells at him and screams.
Throws a glass at him.
At him, like grabs his legs and is like stomping.
Trying to get him to do that.
And that is kind of like an escalated version of like, I don't know. I've been around people like when I was a kid, and I've seen like parents like hit their kids and stuff. And it was very like, oh my God, I can't watch this.
Yeah, it's
like,
very uncomfortable.
It's very scary, but it wasn't like overtly violent. It was just so uncomfortable.
Tension, a lot of tension that's going on the whole time.
Really good tension in that.
So you do have Bjorn. He finally sticks up. He finally goes, hey, that's just a child, okay? He doesn't understand what's going on. Cut it out. And this is the only time to where I think Patrick is kind of surprised the whole movie.
Yes, exactly.
So he just kind of like leans back at him. And then it cuts to Bjorn, Luis, and Agnes all in their room, packing up and getting ready for the next morning to get out of there.
Yeah, we'll just stay one more night and then we'll get the hell out.
Yeah, so that night, you hear Abel just moaning, and he is crying, and there's a TV on, and Bjorn is just like, what is going on?
It's heartbreaking sound.
It is, and you see Patrick walk by. He walks by the window, and then you hear Abel crying, and then it goes quiet. And then you see, Patrick was also yelling the whole time too, and you see Patrick walk back by.
Yeah, Patrick went and turned that kid off.
Yeah. So Bjorn gets curious because, there's so much sound in the house that he needs to know what's going on. Goes upstairs, turns off the TV, and as he's turning off the TV, you see somebody behind him on the outside window turn and walk. Mm-hmm. So he then turns off a faucet that was on too, and he looks out and he sees this barn door that's open. So he's like, oh, I wonder what's going on here.
That weird kind of garage barn thing that Patrick has outside.
So he goes in there, and there's cameras everywhere, and there's a staircase, and there's luggage. So he goes up the staircase, and he looks at these pictures on the wall, and this is where he sees all these families. And he's looking through, and he sees a picture of Abel with a family, and then he sees a picture of Patrick and Karen with a different kid. And then he looks over, and then you see the kid that they were with in that picture with another family, and then with another kid, and so on, and so on, and so on. And then Bjorn's like, oh, no. So he goes downstairs. When he goes downstairs, he looks in this pool, and when they show this scene, I don't know why I said it, but he turns around, and he sees the pool, and Abel's in the pool face down floating dead.
Yeah.
And then I went, of course he is. That's what I said out loud. I was like, of course he's dead. Yeah. Like, of course is what's going to happen. So Bjorn goes back inside, gets Luis, gets Agnes, gets out.
We're
I'm
leaving.
like, oh man, so now we got 15 minutes left.
Oh, it's gonna be hot.
We bring in the heat.
Yeah.
They drive. They see some taillights behind him. Goes by him. He realizes he's low on gas. Gets gas. Continues to drive on. Mm-hmm. And then as he's driving on, there's a car on the side of the road, which then starts coming after him. Bjorn panics and tries to go off-road to get away from him. Car gets stuck. So he sees a house in the distance with a light on. And he's like, I'm going to go to that house, and I'm going to figure out what's going on and try to get help. So this is me being like, oh, okay, we got Texas Chainsaw action.
Yeah.
Now. Okay, here comes the whole family.
Yeah.
Nope. He just goes, gets stuck in the water for a little bit, climbs out, climbs over a fence, asks for help, can't find anybody, comes back to the car. Luis and Agnes are gone. He goes out to the road. Whenever he goes out there, Patrick and Karen pull up, and Luis and Agnes are in the back seat. Now, Luis and Agnes have no idea what's going on yet. Bjorn just got him out of there. Bjorn's the only person that knows what's happening. Patrick gets out of the car and walks up to Bjorn, and Bjorn's like, please don't hurt my family.
Yep.
Just let us go.
He's begging.
And Patrick goes, listen to what I say, and nothing bad will happen.
And I think it's awesome. It is an hour and a half into the movie, and they've been in danger the whole time. This is the first and only threat that happens. Mm-hmm. Patrick is this is the first time ever Patrick kind of admits you're in danger.
Yeah.
I'm going to do something bad.
Mm-hmm. And there's another scene while they're driving, and Patrick stops to use the restroom, and you see Bjorn look over at the keys, and he's just staring while Patrick's outside.
God, and it's just
yeah, it's
do it.
Just slide over and do it.
Do it, man. Just drive
then
off.
you've got a 2v1 fight in the car, and
Yep.
I'm pretty sure you'll win.
Yep.
And after that happens, Patrick gets back in the car, and they start to drive, and Luis is like, hey, how far are we away from the house, and where are we going? And Patrick goes, can you please shut the hell up? It's not exactly that, but I think he says, I think he tells him to shut the F up, if I remember correctly. And then she's like, excuse me? And then Karen says the same thing. Well, Luis starts to be like, what is going on? And Bjorn is just kind of sitting there quiet. And then at that point, these lights flip on. And it's just, you just see a vehicle, and a guy opens up the car door, and there's just quiet. And, Luis starts to hold on to Agnes because she's like, something's going on.
Yeah, somebody's here.
And then this is where it all takes place. So Patrick basically turns around, and whenever he turns around, Karen's got the scissors out.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And Karen's like, give me the child. Mm-hmm. And Luis is like, no, you're not getting my baby. It's not going to happen. And Bjorn tries to interfere whenever Bjorn does.
Is there a scene where we see, am I thinking of something else? But do we see Abel's tongue cut out?
Yeah, it shows Abel's tongue cut out.
Okay.
What happened with Abel is Bjorn goes to take the trash out whenever the first night they're there, and he tries to scream, and then
his tongue is gone.
His tongue is gone.
Okay.
So Karen ends up getting Agnes, and Patrick is basically holding back Luis,
mm-hmm.
and they open up Agnes's mouth, and they pull out Agnes's tongue, and they cut it off.
It was good.
And to me, as I'm watching it, I'm like, this is what the parents get. You pieces of trash. I was like, it is your fault. This is happening to your child. And I was so mad.
Yeah, because okay, let's talk about this. Because you almost get mad at yourself, right? Because you're not. It's kind of like in Face Off when they're at Fahan's loft, and you're rooting for all the cops to get shot, even though they're literally the good guys. But you're watching this child get mutilated, and I'll be honest, there's a part of you that's good. Fuck the parents. That's what they get.
Yeah.
That's what you get. Because this whole movie, you're just watching them let all these terrible things happen.
Yep.
And then finally, you're like, good, I'm glad your daughter got her tongue cut out, you idiots.
Yep. So then the babysitter who was there earlier is the guy who pulled up. He takes Agnes away. Mm-hmm. The parents are
to God knows where.
Yeah, don't have a clue what's happening. And Bjorn and Luis are crying, and they're like, please give us back our daughter. They drive off, and then they end up going back to that place where Bjorn and Patrick were yelling at. And Bjorn and Luis are taken out in front of the car. So it's Bjorn and Luis standing here, Patrick and Karen are right here.
Power couples. Here comes the showdown.
And then Patrick tells them to basically get naked. And Bjorn's like, why are you doing this to us? And then Patrick goes, because you let us. And whenever I heard that line, I was like, I really wish that this line would have hit me harder. I do. I really, really do. Because in my head, it was like in The Strangers, whenever it was like, why are you doing this? Because you were home.
Yeah, in The Strangers line, I think, is more terrifying.
Because they tried the whole time. That's why it was terrifying to me.
Yeah, well, I think The Strangers, what's so terrifying about that movie is because that line, because you're home, just equates their horrible confrontation as random chance.
I'm not saying that they're the same thing. I'm just saying that I wish it would have hit me as hard as that.
Yeah.
But at this point,
it is a very similar line.
It is. Yeah. And I'm so frustrated and I'm so angry that this has happened that I couldn't take it seriously at this point because I'm so mad.
Yeah.
Because the other thing about this, if I remember correctly, there's no weapons except for the scissors, if I remember correctly.
It's not like, and again, that threat that Patrick gives earlier, it's not like in this car, there's no gunpoint, it's very on Patrick's word. At any time here, Luis and Bjorn could grab him, fight him.
Anything.
Keep him from driving around.
Even at this point, they could easily start fighting, do anything to get back to their daughter to try to find out what's going on.
Yes, fight for your life.
And your daughter. You don't know where your daughter is. She is very much wounded right now. She needs your help. Do something. Anything.
So this line of because you let me, it is, I think the line hits pretty well. I think it's...
I mean, it makes... I will tell you right now, it makes sense with the movie, and I'm sure it hits other people harder than it hit me.
You're just saying you're so distracted by your frustration, you're not even really listening.
100%. And that's more on me than anything. Do I think that it was a bad line? No.
Yeah.
I think it's a great line. But at the point, I'm so frustrated with Bjorn and Luis that it just didn't hit me the way it's supposed to. Now, granted, this is what the movie's supposed to do. I understand that. Yeah. But at this point, I'm like, man, I've been watching this for like an hour and 20 minutes. Let's see what you got. Let's see what's going to happen.
Because how do you all these moments, right? How do you crescendo this passive coward family? How do you finish a movie when they've just let so much happen to them? And there is not a more frustrating, maddening, oh my God, I was so mad in the way that this movie ends because they strip them down naked. Mm-hmm. They take Bjorn and Luis down. They put them in a pit. And they start throwing rocks at them.
The first rock that hits Luis, I laughed.
Yes.
Openly laughed because I was like, this is so ridiculous.
Yes.
Because as I'm watching it, I'm like, just get out of the way.
Run.
And anything. Anything at this point in time. Do anything. Just that.
Yes. Try to dodge the rocks.
Do anything.
And again, that's why I think it's great writing, is because they don't have a gun. They could run. They're not going to throw rocks at you forever. Turn around and run. But no, just like everything else, they let the rocks hit them repeatedly until they die.
There is a really funny rock throw. The last rock you see thrown is Patrick, and he has this bigger rock, and he overhead throws it. He just kind of and you just see it smack one of them. So that happens, and at this point, I'm kind of laying there because I was laying on the couch watching it, And, you know, it cuts back over to it, and it has this, like, really sad music.
Yeah.
And it shows their body and their blood running off into the water.
It could have played Benny Hill music, like, for all I care.
Yeah, like at that point, I'm watching it, and I'm like, okay, so what happened to Agnes?
Yep.
And then it cuts over. You see Patrick and Karen. Agnes is in the back seat. They're starting the process all over
On
again.
vacation with their new
doing
kid.
it
With
all
the cutout
over
tongue.
again.
Um,
That's when credits hit, and then that's whenever I was sitting there, and Tiff enjoyed it. Tiff liked it.
uh-huh.
I did not. And to me, it's so weird because I don't like it, but I don't think it's a bad movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's something so much to say about, like, I think if I gave this movie a score, I'd give it like a 4 out of 5. Like, and like, it's so fun to, like, you say you hate it, but that doesn't mean we can't have awesome conversation about it.
That's kind of what I was going to it, because if you see me talking about it, there's a lot of moments in it to where I'm like, this was fun, this was cool, I enjoyed this. And I think it was just me, because Tiff and I had a long conversation about this last night.
Give me some highlights about that.
So
How did that go?
Tiff and I, while we were doing it, she was like, you know, because Tiff hasn't watched a ton of foreign films, so she was like, you got to remember, like, it's different, Grayson. You know, you have two different, you know, you've got a Danish family and a Dutch family, and they're kind of going back and forth with, you know, their different cultures and stuff like that. I was like, I get it, but I was like, just any kind of like, fight of whatsoever. Even if they would have lost, I would have been like, at least you're giving me something that would have made that line hit me harder, because it's like, man, you did get played the whole time, but at least you tried and you still failed.
Yeah, I think for me, though, I think if they do fight back, I don't think you and I are talking about this.
We're not 100%. And I think that's why, like, I would always open the conversation to talk about this movie.
Yeah.
And which is why I had a conversation with Tiff last night, and I'm having a conversation with you. And Tiff was more on your side with this. Whereas, you know, I was frustrated by it. Tiff was like, I don't know, you know, that's just how it's supposed to go. And in the bed, I was like, I know it's how it's supposed to go.
You're just so
I
mad.
get it, but I'm so frustrated.
I think that's such a wonderful display of your investment in what the movie was trying to do.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
And it just goes back to, like I said, like, do I love the movie? No. But I don't think it's awful either.
And I don't think you'll ever forget it.
I mean, I probably will after a while, but that's just, you know, how my brain kind of works. But I'll always remember the ending,
Yeah.
like, for sure. Like, I'll
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah.
But, you know, if I had to put any kind of score of whatsoever on it, it's like, if I put it out of like 10, it's like a 5.
Uh-huh.
If I was to do the 1 out of 5, it would be like a 2.5.
Yeah.
You know,
it's serviceable.
Would I recommend this for people to watch? I'd say yeah. I'd tell them to watch it just so that they could kind of see what their reaction is to it. And I think that's where I kind of want to go.
I think that's why I wanted you and Tiff to watch, because I knew y'all would at least talk about it.
Oh, and we
There's
did.
something to say about the movie.
And we did. And I originally wanted to write down, like, as I was watching the movie, but I was like, no, I need to give this movie my full attention.
Yeah.
So let me give it my full attention and then write down stuff after it was over with. And I just remember, like, when the credits rolled, the first thing I said was, stupid.
Yeah, stupid.
And then, like, it took me the conversation with Tiff to kind of be like, okay. Because my original score, it was like a 1.
Oh, yeah.
And then the more and more I thought about it, I was like, oh, I can't necessarily give it that, because there's scenes in it that I really enjoy.
Just because you're so mad about it, that
Yeah,
doesn't mean that the quality was bad type of
Yeah,
thing.
and, you know, and I think a lot of people will have the same thing. I'm not going to ever tell people, do not watch this film. I'll tell people to watch this film all day long.
Yeah.
But it is, I just wish it would have hit me a little harder, and I wish it would have been a little bit easier for me to digest the situations that the parents were putting their child into.
Yeah. But yeah, so this was a follow-up to this video, which you can watch, which was our Why is Speaking of Evil so overmarketed? And Grayson's first reaction to the trailer of the American version, which I have kept a secret from him so he would watch the first one first. Mm-hmm. So go check out that video. We will also talk about, like, how we think they're going to completely mess it up based on that trailer reaction. So go check that video out. Also go to patreon.com/hangtime for more oh my god, I can't talk. For more Carnage Candy content, and enjoy that video. Way to go, Grayson.
Thank you. I had a good conversation.
We're just waiting on them to go click something. I didn't need you to actually answer me, That's my button.